So like I showed you, you start with the English, and then you cannot contain any other non-alphabetic things except underbar. Underbar is fine. You cannot use the hyphen. You cannot use, of course, colon, semicolon. Well, it doesn't show any error when I use the medium hyphen, but it might be an issue later. And then, especially when you jump into the script, it is actually issue. So it's better to keep with these kind of things, yeah, in your hand. And I'm going to create a project. As you can see in the project, it already shows your project, and then if you're working on and on and on, it's going to be added. One project of the Unity is not a one file like Photoshop or Rhino. For example, here inside of the folder, you will see, because this is the name of my project, the RL prep, my preparation. But anyway, you will see, yeah, a lot of folders inside of the one project. So which means it contains a lot of folders. So you need to care about, like, for example, when you hand over your project to others, you cannot just send over just one single file. So now this is going to be your first view of the Unity. So basically the layout, so it says hierarchy over here and the scene. So hierarchy, scene, game, inspector, project, console. So hierarchy is, so basically I think it's better to start with the scene. Scene is actually where you are going to working on, like just use your Rhino or Maya screen. Quite similar to Unreal, isn't it? So scene is where you're working on. The hierarchy is where you see the list of the things inside of the working scene. And then game is like when you try to do the play mode, and it's going to show the game. And inspector, of course, it shows a detail about the object from the hierarchy, as you can see over here. And then here is a project where you're taking care of actual files inside of the project, which is that I show you inside in these folders. These folders exactly showing this, or is it, for example, assets. You can see this assets is assets. So it exactly same as this file. So sometimes it's okay to just drag and drop your files into this scene as well. Console is show about errors or debugging sort of things. You can also like play around with your own layout, so you can just change the size, or like you can change the game location of the game view or consoles, whatever. So I'm sure that you have your own taste in some point. So later, just after you have the some kind of specific location, here layout, you can just do the save layout, and then after that you will load your own layout in your own. So this is actually, yeah, my own layout. So I'd like to see the consoles in the games every time in the same time. So that's why I have this kind of layout. There is already set up the layout over here as well. Just try to figure out your taste. And yeah, so a lot of them. So sure that you can find your own things. Let's start with the 3D game object. I just did a right click to open this panel. You will see a couple of them like cut, copy, duplicate, and 3D object, effect, lights, audio, and video, also tone. So here we mainly this you're going to use this a lot. Create empty and as well as 3D object. So let's try to create the cube. You can directly change your name over here. So if you forgot to change your name, you can change your name inside of the inspector, or here F2 you can change your name to move around. Yeah, this is same as Maya. It is use a QWERTY board. So Q is like just panning your screen. W is just move around. E is to rotate. R is about the scale. And well, T is you're not going to use it in 3D, so you don't need to think about it. So, and then you can see here in the transform, it always changes the position and rotations and scale, right? So not just here, you also can control the size of your game object and your game object inside of transform. And of course, right click, reset, we're going to bring back to 000 and scale 111. And then you can see here at the link button. So now you can change the scale. Just to copy the object, just click it, Control D, duplicate, same as Maya again, duplicate, Control D, Of course, you can do the Control C and V, but yeah, I love to use the Control V. Focus to the object, like zoom selected is select, and F is just zoom focus. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand about the inspector. Each of them called component, transform component. This is mesh filter component, mesh renderer component, box collider component. And as you can see here, mesh filter, it is taking care about the actual shape. So if you change to capsules, you see that shape of the game object changed to capsule, a sphere, or a cylinder, right? But you still can see this green cube over here. That green cube is collider. Collider is physical shape. The mesh filter is just visual shape, but the box collider taking care about the physical shape. And the mesh renderer, obviously, it is about the rendering. And then if you want to change the material here, you can see just click here, and well, it doesn't have the default material over here, but you can change the material through here. And so what is box collider? Let's go back to cube, and I will create empty object over here, game object, and you can see there is a nothing, and the inspector has nothing as well, and the resets. And here let's try to add one by one. So you can so build same as like that, mesh filter, add component, mesh filter, click it again, you can see the same thing, right? I'll choose the cube, but you still don't see the cube, right? Because it doesn't have the rendering right now. So mesh renderer, and now we see this purple-ish color because it doesn't have any material. So inside of the Unity, purple means empty. It's like a check panel in the Photoshop. It means it's empty. So we need to attach any materials over here. And then here, before I add a box collider, we have GameCube and GameObject over here. I will go bring it to up, and I will make the plane. And then I'm going to add rigid body, but rigid body is more taking care about gravity itself, and then it's kind of making a rigid body itself. Like collider is just calculating is the boundary of this object. So if I add again rigid body over here, and then turn on the gravity, and just make sure this gravity rigid body, and if I run it, they drop both, but there you see that this game object, which we didn't put a mesh collider, it just went through, right? So because of the collider itself, it is not colliding each other. It is not meet. I mean, even though they have the rigid body, so it has the gravity, but because it doesn't have the physical outline, so it just go through the plane. Just for example, it's better to think about the games, like when you have some kind of car crash, it do something, right? But without this collider, they cannot calculate this kind of crashing event. This collider is just to calculate this kind of the colliding event, crashing event.